I was 22 years old. I was a child who made one mistake and paid for it with everything.
You were married. You were somebody's wife before you became mine.
It lasted 4 months. It was annulled. I was running from something I could not even name yet.
4 months. An annulment. And you looked me in the eye on our wedding day and said nothing.
I told you, Michael. I told you this woman was hiding something. A clean person does not seal records.
You do not know what you have just started.
Sandra had learnt early that some truths, if spoken at the wrong moment, do not set you free, they bury you. She had been carrying this one for 9 years, through courtship, through a wedding that filled 3 halls in Lekki, through 4 years of marriage to a man she genuinely loved. She had carried it the way a woman carries something fragile, carefully, quietly, always aware of where she placed her feet. The first marriage lasted 4 months. She was 22, desperate to escape a home that was slowly crushing her, and Emeka had offered her a door. She had walked through it without understanding what was on the other side. By the 3rd month, she understood. By the 4th month, she was gone. The annulment was quiet, sealed, handled by a lawyer her late uncle had paid for. She had told no one. She had moved from Enugu to Lagos, rebuilt herself from the ground, and promised herself that the person she had been at 22 would never follow her into the life she was building. Then she met Michael. Michael was patient and solid and funny in a quiet way that undid her completely. She told him almost everything. Her difficult childhood, her controlling father, the years she had spent shrinking herself to survive. She told him the shape of her pain without telling him its full history. And when he proposed in a garden in Maitama, with his hands shaking and his eyes full, she said yes and buried Emeka deeper than she had ever buried anything. For 4 years, it stayed buried. It was a business deal that cracked it open. Michael's family was merging 2 companies, and as part of due diligence, a background check was run on all principals and their spouses. The investigator was thorough. The sealed record was not sealed enough. Sandra found out on a Tuesday. Michael's younger brother Victor called her not to warn her, but to confirm what he had already told her mother. By the time Sandra reached home that evening, Mama Chidima was already sitting in her living room with a printed document on her lap, and a look Sandra recognized immediately. It was the look of a woman who had been waiting a long time for a weapon and had finally found one. Michael sat across from his mother. He had not yet spoken. He was reading the document. Sandra watched his face move through confusion, then disbelief, then something worse. A cold, quiet withdrawal, as if he were pulling himself back behind glass where she could see him, but not reach him. She tried to explain. She told him everything. The house she had grown up in, the father who controlled every breath she took, the desperate exit that became Mecca, the 4 months that felt like 4 years, the annulment, the move to Lagos, the woman she had worked so hard to become. She told him all of it, with her hands in her lap and her voice steady, because she had decided she would not beg. She would explain. She would not beg. Michael listened. Then he stood up and walked to the bedroom and closed the door. Mama Chidima left with the document tucked under her arm and satisfaction rolling off her in waves. That night, Sandra lay on the guest room bed and stared at the ceiling and understood that the thing she had feared for 9 years had arrived. Not with screaming, not with violence, with a closed door and a silence that had weight. The weeks that followed were the worst of her life. Micah was not cruel. He was absent. He went to work, came home, ate, slept in the bedroom she no longer shared with him, and spoke to her only about logistics. His family filled the vacuum his silence created. Mama Chidima began calling relatives. Victor posted carefully worded statements on his WhatsApp status that did not name Sandra but did not need to. The whispers moved fast. By the third week, people Sandra had never met knew she had a first marriage she had hidden. What nobody said, what nobody in Michael's family wanted to say out loud, was why she had hidden it. Nobody asked about the house she grew up in. Nobody asked about her father, who had died 3 years ago, leaving a family that still flinched at loud sounds. Nobody asked what it meant for a 22-year-old girl with no money and no allies to walk out of a bad marriage alone in Enugu, to seal it quietly, to start again with nothing. Nobody asked because asking would have complicated the story they had chosen to tell. And that story was simpler. She was a liar. She had deceived their son. She had brought shame. It was Sandra's friend Ada who broke the silence. Ada had known Sandra since university. She had not been there for the marriage. Sandra had hidden that even from her. But she had been there for the aftermath. She had watched Sandra arrive in Lagos with one bag and hollow eyes. She had watched her rebuild. She knew enough. Ada wrote nothing online. She simply began talking to the women in Michael's family circle, the wives, the cousins, the quiet ones who listened. She told them what Sandra's childhood had looked like. She described her father with care and precision. She explained what Emeka had been. Not a romance gone wrong, but an exit from something suffocating. She spoke about the annulment not as a shameful secret, but as the act of survival it was. The story shifted, slowly, then all at once. Michael heard it from his aunt first, then from his closest friend James, who sat with him one evening and asked plainly, "Did you ever ask her why she hid it? Not whether she hid it. Why?" Michael had not asked. He had read the document and closed a door and called that grief. He sat with the question for 3 days. On the 4th day, he came to Sandra in the guest room. He sat on the edge of the bed and looked at his hand for a long time before he looked at her. She did not make it easy. She had decided she would not. He said he understood now. He said it had arrived too late and too slowly, and he knew that. He said he was sorry, not for being hurt, but for the way he had let his family use his hurt as a door. He said her name the way he used to say it, and Sandra felt something shift in her chest that she did not fully trust yet. She told him she needed time. She said she had spent 9 years protecting herself from the consequences of one desperate decision made by a girl with no one in her corner. And that watching him walk behind that closed door confirmed every fear she had ever carried about what happened when you trusted someone with the worst parts of your history. She was not leaving, but she was not returning to the same arrangement. Mama Chidima came 3 weeks later, without the document, without the satisfaction. She sat in the same chair and looked older somehow, worn at the edges. Sandra offered her water and waited. The older woman spoke for a long time. What she said was not quite an apology, but it was as close as a woman like her could come. Sandra did not tell her that she had chosen not to know the full story. She simply nodded. Michael never came. Sandra had not expected him to. What she did not tell any of them, what she held privately, in the part of herself she had learned to protect, was that in the weeks of silence, something had clarified completely. She knew what she was worth. She knew what she had survived. She knew that a sealed record did not define her and never had, and that every room she walked into from here, she would walk into whole, history included, apology issued to no one. Michael came back slowly, the way water moves, finding edges, testing ground. She let him, not quickly, not easily, but she let him. Because love, real love, was not something she was willing to discard, simply because it had been tested. What she discarded was the version of herself that hid things out of fear. That woman was gone. This one let people see her, all of her, and dared them to handle it. Was Sandra wrong to hide her past, or did the people around her prove exactly why she hid it? Drop your thoughts below. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs it today. and drop a comment. We want to hear from you. God bless you.